Hi there, and welcome to our discussion today on TED at BCG. I'm Amy Rule. I'm a member of BCG's Global External Relations team. I've worked on the TED-BCG partnership for the last 5 years, among some other things, and today I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Briar Goldberg. I am TED's Director of Speaker Coaching. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, me too. So we're going to spend about the next 20 minutes or so just talking about this partnership that BCG has with TED, and specifically about a very big event coming up tomorrow, our 7th annual TED at BCG. And since we have Briar here, we also want to spend some time talking about what it takes to develop a great TED Talk.
And then at the end, we will answer a couple commonly asked questions about giving a TED Talk, the TED at BCG partnership. I'm so excited.
Great. Okay, well, let's get started.
So I would like to start. You have been part of this partnership and this event for so many years. So hosting TED at BCG events and working with the speakers, all of this. Can you give everybody a little background on what the partnership is all about?
Sure. So BCG is actually a founding partner of what's called the TED Institute. It's TED's corporate development arm that partners with a very actually small select group of companies to do a number of things throughout the year, but the biggest is usually a TED at event, which is a fully co-hosted, co-curated event between TED and the partner company, in this case BCG. And we also do a bunch of other things throughout the year. We go to TED's own events, we create content together, we just kind of keep learning from each other throughout the year. But I would say the
Which
TED
is the best.
I know,
the best.
Yeah, it really is. It's such a privilege to work with the two great organizations coming together. But but it really does culminate in this TED at BCG event each year.
So every year at these Institute events, there is a theme, and this year's theme is reboot. Tell me what reboot means.
Yes. So again, every year we pick a theme, and it's intentionally broad to ensure that we can cover all of the best ideas that are coming from our community of inside BCG, our BCG alumni, our clients, and kind of just extended BCG family. But this year, as we were thinking about the theme, we actually started thinking about it last October of what are we going to do for our 7th event. And we kind of take our cue from what's happening in the world. And so we were looking around and seeing how much change there is going on in the world, and how much tension and just this desire to kind of not restart from the beginning, but reboot. And what happens when you reboot your computer? A lot of times you download some upgrades and you change the operating system slightly. And so a lot of what our event is looking at is what are some of the really big changes that build upon the strengths that we've already created in our world, in our organizations, in our personal lives, and kind of give them a reboot.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So once we decide the theme, we identify the speakers, and I won't bore people with my spreadsheets, but I have lots of spreadsheets for how we identify the speakers. But then it's time to, once we select that group of speakers, it's time to help them turn their idea and expertise into a TED Talk. So can you provide some insight into what that process is like?
I would love to. So I think the coolest part about the Institute and TED in general is that it really is a partnership when we develop these talks. It's the speaker working with our team, working with the BCG team, as we really dig to find the coolest central idea. And that's the difference between a TED Talk and any other presentation, is that it's just focused around one cool, unique, never been heard before idea. And it's a long process. We work with speakers for like 3 months, I think, really developing and making sure that these ideas are shared in the most interesting, engaging, and cohesive way. And it's lovely because it really is done together and in partnership. And these speakers have worked so hard to share, to develop and create the talks that they're getting to share tomorrow. So I'm so excited for everyone to see it.
Oh, me too. And you're right. It is a long and intense process. And I'm curious, you are working so closely with all these speakers. Is there ever a time where you're like, you've got it? An aha moment where you're like, and what does that look like?
I love that question. Yeah. And it's different for everyone. I feel like more often than not, speakers and I will just be chatting, and I'll be asking questions because I'm getting myself educated on AI or some kind of other crazy thing I know nothing about. And it's usually within that conversation that the speaker will say, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, there it is, just falls out in conversation. And this nugget of information that I've never heard before, that's never been presented to me in that way, will come. And then we generally make that the central focus of the talk. I think that's how the best ideas come, when you're teaching somebody or when you're brainstorming. And we certainly see that a lot at TED.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, especially since like the goal of a TED Talk is to, spread that idea and kind of teach it. It's cool that it happens on a micro scale.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm curious, how many speakers have you worked with over the years? Because this is not the only event.
No, this is not the only event. I mean, at this point, I think I've probably lost count. At this point, I've probably worked with, a couple hundred TED speakers over the years. I think BCG, I don't know, maybe
BCG alone,
maybe 25.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah,
is that
probably.
a fair guess? I think probably.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think so.
So do you have? And I know each each relationship with each speaker is probably somewhat unique. But do you have some advice that you tend to give to all of your speakers?
I do, and I think it's this, is that if you've been selected to stand on the TED stage, you are there for a reason. Our curation team is just the best of the best, and certainly in partnership with the team that you bring forward, it's no mistake that you've been asked to be on the TED stage. So you have to understand that you've got the coolest idea and you have the best way of presenting it. And so I think that confidence alone is really important for people to hear. It's a big stage, but the team is the right team, and the speakers are the right speakers.
Right.
So I think that's it. And then being able to share your idea in the way that's most authentic to you. I think in the past, we can get into this later, but in the past it used to be okay to just stand behind a podium and pontificate. And that's not true, and was never okay, but that used to be acceptable. Let me just say that as a speaker coach. It was never okay, but it used to be acceptable. But now you can get authenticity and you can get ideas in so many different platforms. And so making sure that you're delivering the idea that's clear and authentic to you is really what we strive for.
Great.
All right. I would like to know a little bit about your work with past speakers, because goodness knows you have advised many speakers over the years at BCG, and you have certainly watched hundreds of thousands of minutes of TED at BCG talks. So I would like to know, from your perspective, what makes a good TED talk, or what makes a good TED at BCG talk?
So, and I think you touched on it a little bit earlier, but I think what has made the best TED talks, and definitely the best TED at BCG talks, is really narrowing in on that one core great idea. And I think a lot of people, when they start this process, they get caught up in kind of like some myths about TED, and I need to start with a personal story, or I need to show a photo of my family, or it needs to be funny, or it needs to be tear jerking, and that may come, but it won't come effectively unless you really narrow in on that one idea. Not one idea in 6 parts, like one idea.
Exactly. Now, you and the audience at home might not know this, but you are sometimes with speakers right up until the minute they go on stage. So what do you tell somebody right before they head out the gate, right before the show starts? What do you like to say? What's your best advice?
It's so funny, and I actually would love to know if I should even be doing this, because what I do is what my husband actually often does for me when I speak is he just gives me this big smile. And it's not that, I might be about to speak about something really serious, and certainly many of our TED speakers are talking about really serious things where they don't need to smile, but there's something about somebody just smiling at me that makes me smile back, that makes me relax. And so that's what I don't tend to say anything. I tend to just give a really cheesy smile.
I love it. I don't know. I think you can't see anything wrong with that. Anything to take down the nerves. I love it.
Good.
I love it.
But as a speaker coach and as a presentation and just speaking coach, even previous to TED, what do you look for in a great TED Talk?
Yeah, I think the unique idea is one, but this extends beyond TED. I've worked with TED speakers for a long time, and I've worked with corporate executives for a really long time as well. And I think that there is such value in finding a unique idea, period. No matter if it's in a board meeting, no matter if it is at your all hands, what I found prior to joining TED, I was a public speaking and a speechwriter consultant. And I would go around to these executives, and I remember one week in particular where 3 different CEOs shared almost the same story in their keynotes that I'm not kidding. I'm actually not kidding. And I remember being like, my gosh, something must, like an article came out and it all really resonated with them, and that's great. But I think it's so easy to fall into the trap to think that you're saying something unique, and you might not be. And as we were saying before, where everybody can get content everywhere now, being able to be unique and being able to be different and being able to articulate your idea clearly is so important. So I think that's the value that getting, certainly training through TED, as these BCG speakers are getting, but in general, just stopping and taking a minute to think, am I saying something new and fresh? High value.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. And speaking of value, what do you value personally about working as a speaker coach?
I think for me, there's something so special in watching people get on a stage and share something that's been living in their head for who knows how long, and get to share that with a big audience. I mean, that is truly something special, and it may sound cheesy as it is, that the power of your words can really convince someone to think a different way or see something a different way. And there's nothing like that. There's nothing like that. So I think communication in its like pure essence is what I love. That's why I do what I do. I think that's it. So speaking of what makes a good TED Talk, what makes a good talk, what can we expect to hear from the speakers tomorrow at this year's TED at BCG event?
Ooh, so many things.
So many things.
So we have 15 speakers joining us at TED at BCG, and you can follow along their talks on hashtag TED at BCG if you want to get some highlights from those. But we have speakers talking about how viruses can actually be friendly and helpful. We have a speaker talking about her experience as a debate champion and how that can teach all of us to actually communicate a little bit better in this world. We have a couple of talks looking at kind of, from a very high level, like what is happening geopolitically in our world, and what is the new language of globalization and those sorts of things. So we're intentionally, again, kind of all over the map at the microbial, I'm not a scientist, the very micro level up to very high geopolitical level.
You know what I love about this event, and for those of you watching at home, this is the coolest part, I think, is that your colleagues sitting right here have expertise in things you didn't even know they had expertise in, and some of them are sharing that tomorrow. And that, I think that is one of the coolest things, is not everybody's talking about what they do at work.
Exactly.
And that's fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so we've talked a lot about other people's TED Talks and other people's experiences, but I'm curious, if you were to give a TED Talk, what would you give it on?
Well, it's interesting you should ask that question right now. So here's something that people may not know happens internally at TED, but every once in a while, if we have a staff retreat or something like that, we actually put ourselves through the process. And so the curation team, which is the team that I sit on, we had a staff retreat a couple weeks ago, and we all had to give TED Talks. It's important that
on top of your day job.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Which all of our speakers do too.
I dream about TED Talks all day long, and then I extra dreamed about TED Talks as I was preparing my own. So this year, I gave a talk about how redheaded women of a certain age actually had heroes represented in the media, and wouldn't that be interesting if everybody had heroes represented in the media, and could we be the case study? So it's one of those things I had been thinking in the back of my head for a long time, and then it came out in the TED Talk.
Did they record this? I would love to.
No.
I would love to watch it and
internal.
That's amazing.
Okay, back at you now. You have seen so many TED Talks. What would you give your TED Talk on?
So I have thought about this a lot over the years, especially sitting in the audience and just being amazed by everybody's expertise. And I think one thing, I'm not totally sure, but I know it would have to be something from my personal experience, talking to your point earlier that, again, I see people, and there are a lot of parodies out there about this too, of just wanting to give a TED Talk. And so they, they're like, well, I'll do it on on the importance of pacifism, or I'll do it on something that a lot of people may believe in, but they don't actually have any real expertise. They're not the right person to give the talk. So when I think about, oh well, goodness, on what topic am I the right person to give the talk? It's probably something that seems a little bit boring to me. Something about like, how do you bring two organizations together in a partnership and
not boring
and exchange the best of both without bringing each other down, or how do you maintain good sibling relationships into adulthood, or something that is like very pedestrian or normal in my own life. But the key is getting feedback to understand what people can learn from your experience on that topic.
I love both of those, and I'm signing you up for next year. So that's be careful what you wish for. Right. Okay. So I feel like every time we do one of these events, there are a bunch of questions that we get from people. So I thought maybe we could spend some time answering some of the most common questions about the TEDBCG process, about giving a TED Talk. So why don't we look at a couple of those right now? I can start. I think you should tell everybody at home where they can watch all of the past TEDBCG talks, because there are so many killer talks that have come out of TEDBCG.
Yes, there are actually, I think our latest numbers, there are almost 100, and we're about to add 15 more. TED Talks. They've been viewed by over 70 million people around the world, which really, truly is amazing. But you can watch them a couple places. You can watch them on BCG.com, and then also on TED.com by searching BCG. So either place.
And they're fabulous. All of them that have put out so many interesting talks, and they're all over the map.
Yes.
There's something. There's something for everybody. There is a topic for everyone in there, and they're worth sitting down and binge watching. They're really, really terrific. Yeah. They're terrific.
So in watching our 100 TEDBCG talks, plus the hundreds more that you've watched, what is one lesson that you've taken away from watching other people's TED Talks?
My gosh. I think there was one. And this is probably one of my favorites, I think, that came, it's so hard. Picking a favorite TED Talk is like picking your favorite child for me, at least. Yes. It's damn near impossible. But I think one of the lessons that I loved came out of last year's event. It was Heather Lanier, I believe. Lanier, thank you, Heather, gave this neat, very personal but very insightful talk about I don't want to ruin it for the audience at home, but the central question of her talk is something good or bad, who's to say? And how we label something that is good, something is bad, and maybe we should stop doing that. And that I think about once a week. Yeah. What about you? One of the ideas that has stuck out, or one of your favorite talks, either at TED or TED at BCG, what's one of your favorites?
So, actually, two of my favorite TED Talks of all time have focused on the criminal justice system in the United States. One by Adam Foss, a former prosecutor in the Boston area, and then another one by a woman who I'm forgetting her name, but she leads the Bail Project. In both cases, they gave really compelling personal talks and stories, and a ton of research and statistics to talk about, where I think a lot of people agree that the criminal justice system in the U.S. is probably in need of some repair and reform. Yeah. But what really impressed me about them was how they were doing it. Like they weren't waiting around for somebody else to do it. Adam Foss was looking for creative ways to, how do we absolutely pursue justice, but also mercy, and I think the Bail Project is doing a similar thing. So those two have both impacted me personally, and I was really impressed with both talks.
Both worth adding to your binge watching playlist.
Yes,
I
exactly.
Think, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's actually all the time we have.
Fabulous.
Just a reminder that if you'd like to follow along on social media, it's #TED @ BCG, and we'll be sharing updates from our speakers.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Tune in tomorrow.